I'm doing great, Dave. Thank you for having me. It's great to be with you. Is my mic on? Is my mic on? I believe I'm on. I just lost him. I just lost him. Lord, let this work. Okay. Yeah, we lost connection, so I've got you on my cell phone right now. And then I guess audio's here, right? Is it better that I hold my phone in my hand, like right here? I just don't want him to lose it. I think it's, maybe I can lock it that way.
Okay, now I think we're back. All right, let's try this again. Ryan, how you doing? Can you hear us?
I can hear you.
All right.
Can you hear me?
Amen. Here we go. All right, thanks for working with us, everybody. We are connecting systems all over the state of Iowa to make this work. So we've been collecting questions from Iowans for the presidential candidates. Ryan, we appreciate you working this out. I doubt that you have snowstorms like this in Dallas too often, right?
I don't think it's ever happened. We do get ice storms, but usually for 2 or 3 days and then they're over. Of course, the world shuts down for even a little bit of ice, but nothing like this.
Hey, we appreciate your patience working through this. All right, I have a lot of questions we want to try to get through. And a reminder, we have assembled questions from Iowans all over our state, and we are talking to Iowans all over our state at this hour and probably beyond as this digital signal goes beyond that, as many people are kind of holed up in a lot of places dealing with this snowstorm. All right, so let's jump into the questions here. We'll start off with a question from Barb, and it's a multi-parter. What would you like your biggest impact to be as president? And then second, how can a candidate be considered the front runner when he continues to create chaos, be under indictments of suspicion, and continue to tell false statements? So kind of a two-parter if you want to handle the first one first.
Okay. Well, Barb, thank you for the question. You know, this is something that I'm answering now all over Iowa, because everywhere I go, many people are asking this one question: what's missing in America? And as we think about that, I think we all know something is, but we haven't quite put, I think, a finger on exactly what it is. For some, it's the economy, or for some, it's the debt, or some of it may be the border. But I'm really sensing this. All these are huge problems that we have to fix. But I think what's really missing is that, you know what, a very low percentage, at an all-time low in America across the board, very few people are saying this: I'm extremely proud to be American today. And I think if I had a legacy 8 years from now, 10 years from now, what would that be that I could be remembered by? I think that would be something that we could get our country back, our heart back. You know, I think the last time I remember us really being proud as a country, really proud, may have been in the 80s when Ronald Reagan, he spoke those words to Gorbachev, and he said, you know, if you believe in liberty, tear this wall down. I think that was an incredible moment, and I think we need to get this back. We've now gone decades with division, decades, I think, with a political polarization, probably a big push from that, from social media, where people get rewarded to get each other angry at each other, sound bites that cause division. And I really feel called to bring unity back in our country, focus on the biggest issues together, get our country back, the heart of our country back economically. I really feel like we need an economic revival and a spiritual revival. I would love for that to be our legacy. And I think we're called to that. I know that there's a moment in America that we have to get back, and that's why I'm running. You know, as far as President Trump and many of the things that he's facing. Even in our own party, it's divided. Certainly, if you're Democrat or Republican or independent, you have a different opinion of everything that he's walking through. I'm just asking America one thing. He did some good things, in my opinion, as president. I supported him in both of his previous election runs. And I think, though, that now's the time for another generation. It's time for us to move forward. I could look back and say, hey, what are some things that he should do different, or what would be different, or how could he lead different? I do think many of the indictments that he's having under him right now shouldn't be there. The Durham report that came out right before them said, hey, none of these should have happened. And then all of a sudden, boom, here's several indictments. I think it's time for us to move forward, though, and heal our nation, move forward with real issues. And I'm really calling on the Republican Party, too, to look ahead. So that's my message. Let's look forward. Like, we can't spend a lot of time looking back. And we've got some big issues to face, but we can have the United States of America again. I'm running for the presidency of the United States of America. We have to win the Republican nomination, but when we do, our focus is America. I believe we have real issues that can solve our problems, and that's why I'm running.
Is the former president a moral, honest leader in your mind?
I think that is for all the voters to decide. In my mind, I think he's done a lot of things. Morality has a lot to do with what is it you believe. I can look at him and say, certainly, would I have led some things differently than he did, or made different decisions, or spoke differently? Well, absolutely. I'm a different kind of leader. At the same time, when you look at his first few weeks in office, he had a lot going against him right away, I think, that no other president had. There was immediate investigations, of which now into Russia. He got impeached for a phone call to Zelensky. There's a lot of things that shouldn't have happened, and so he's up against a lot of things that may have caused him to counter-react in ways that we'd all disagree with. I don't want to question his morality. I think it's up for the voters to sit there and decide, listen, does he represent me? And what I'm speaking to America about is, this is who I am. I'm a business leader. I've got over 350, 400 people on payroll throughout different organizations I lead, and I'm a pastor also. And I will lead our country to where I'll have that compass in that guide in my heart, to where all of us will be able to sit there and have a center and go, what's the right thing to do? To me, that's the center question. There's a scripture in the Bible that says righteousness exalts a nation, which to me just lifts us up. And that's just doing the right thing. That's the way I'll lead. And we'll let the voters decide on other candidates and where they stand on that. But I will try and lead the best I can to make sure we can all stand for these right issues, because they're important to every American.
All right, next question is from Jessica from Charter Oak. What do you think is the biggest issue with American society? How would you help solve that issue?
Well, that's a wonderful question. Right now we have many issues. First of all, you look at our open border. Every day we can get into the economy here a little bit. It's the most important issue, I think, financially to us all. The debt that we have, what causes inflation. All these things are incredibly important. But I think what's the most important issue? I think it's that we're divided as a nation. Abraham Lincoln, in his day, he gave a warning to America, and I'll paraphrase this quote, but what he said was that if danger is ever to come to our shores, or if destruction is ever going to be our lot, that it wouldn't come from abroad. I mean, it's not going to come from China or Russia or somewhere else, that the United States of America would be its author and its finisher. And as I look at our country today, look how divided we are. When you're so divided that it's the goal of the Republican Party and the Democratic Party to see the other parties fail rather than to see America succeed, then we've got a big problem. And so as we get our country and we look at it, how can we move forward when no President Trump nor President Biden really passes consistent measures of legislation year after year? They get involved in 300 plus executive orders because we can't agree on anything. We can't agree on how to reduce the cost of food, how to reduce the cost of inflation, how to have health care reform or secure our border. So because of that, I believe the division is the biggest enemy we have right now, and I'm running to solve that issue. I'll speak to Americans. I'll ask us to rise higher. I'll ask us to look at the real problems that we're facing today and how do we overcome them. Ronald Reagan was one of those leaders back when he argued with Tip O'Neill. They may have fought, but they went and had a beer and a burger together. Then they worked together. It's going to take that type of leadership that transcends the moment, and that's the way I expect to lead.
All right, next question is Noah from Des Moines. What is your plan to stay competitive with China when it comes to AI, artificial intelligence? It's obviously something we're hearing a lot more about the last year or two.
Well, absolutely. Well, artificial intelligence, really, it's in the beginning stages. It's the wild, wild west. So what do you do when you're in that stage? There's so many artists, so many journalists, so many people, businesses, individuals. It's going to impact education. It's going to impact almost every realm of society. We need to get out ahead of it with legislation. In fact, there's ability to do research behind this. We can identify, even in schools, hey, what measure of this has been used by AI? And it's going to take, I think, America getting into the forefront of this. I don't know that I have the exact answers on this. I'm not an expert in this, but there are some out there, and we need to get ahead of it right now. At the end of the day right now, it's going to take American leadership abroad to keep China under control. You know, right now, we as a nation, we buy $700 billion more from them than they do us every year. And they're not really paying attention to us. Their goal is to surpass us as the world's economy. Right now, they have a new currency they developed from the BRICS nations, which is Brazil, Russia, India, and China, as well as other nations. And here's the real issue. They're loaning money to other nations because they have a lower debt to GDP ratio than we do. We, in the United States of America, are borrowing money. We're in a weaker spot. We'll never lead well with AI. We'll never lead well with technology. We'll never lead well unless the U.S. dollar is strong. And my ambition, my strength is economics. And let's get the dollar strong. Let's navigate the storm we're in financially. And when the dollar is strong, we'll lead across the world. We'll be able to invest in the technology we need to make sure that we're protecting American businesses, protecting all of our lives from AI and other things that can harm it, and harness it for good. And that's what I'll do.
All right, more international themed questions here. Another one here from Mike from Council Bluffs, not too far away from where you are right now. With Iran's advancement towards a nuclear weapon, if they were to acquire one, how would you maintain U.S. influence in that region?
Well, right now we have to recognize, obviously, that Israel is our greatest ally in the Middle East right now. There's tremendous tension. In fact, we really are in a proxy war, and Israel is in a proxy war with Iran right now. This whole thing going on with Gaza, that is being funded. Hamas is being funded by Iran. Obviously in Yemen, the Houthis, they are being funded by Iran as well. We have a huge problem. Trade has been disrupted. I think you saw yesterday where we have now began to attack the Houthis in Yemen. And it's time to bomb them back or send that message back that they've disrupted trade. I think over 200 ships, they've been rerouted because of their efforts. And it's time that we actually address Iran head on. You know, there's going to be a moment in time where we will recognize that there's no way possible that they are to have a nuclear weapon. We would do everything in our possibility with sanctions, everything possible to limit that ability for them to do so. And that's going to be one of our national efforts that we have to lead as President of the United States of America.
The President Biden's decision to take part in these joint airstrikes against the Houthis, he's getting some criticism from the left. Former President Trump has also criticized him. Does this type of military operation require Congress, or does the president, in your mind, have the authority to do what he just did?
Well, I believe he's got the authority to do what he just did. You know, right now we've been attacked. Our ships have been attacked. Trade's been attacked. We're standing there just as a matter of defense, and they are shooting weapons at us. We're merely responding to that attack. I do believe that Congress needs to give obviously approval to go to war. This is not an all-out war on Yemen. What we're doing is saying this: if you're going to shoot us, we're going to stop you from shooting us. There's ability to intercept weapons at some level, but at some level you can't do that. I think they've had a pattern of trying to stop the arrow, and now it's time to shoot the archer instead of just the arrow, and I think that's appropriate at this time.
There's a question from Corey, and this is something that I've heard you talk about, some of these themes. The question specifically is, what programs will or can be put in place on the federal level for black men to help with occupational assistance, job placement, and health care, those three main topics?
Well,
and as
thank
you know,
Corey,
there are disparities with all of those. I think that's what brought up this question here.
Absolutely. Let me give you Corey, a real view that I have for America. You know, right now, the Republican Party is really at a loss with most of America. We really haven't had, I believe, strong leadership and a strong message for America in our big cities. For example, we have lost, the Republican Party, President Trump, we lost 46 of the top 50 cities by population. So we don't have would say this, a connected message to urban America, of which many minorities live, Black, Hispanics, many others, and many of them are struggling in so many ways. So education is a big part. So I really want to start an urban America movement, and this will impact Black citizens as well as Hispanic and all others in a great level, where they're in school districts that may not have the income level, that may not have the opportunities, they may not have after school programs, mentoring programs, also don't have trade and technical skills that can truly prepare them for work. So this is my vision. What is the Republican alternative? I would say this to socialism. What is the Republican message, and why somebody that is of color or struggling financially in urban America today, why would they vote for Ryan Binkley? Well, at the end of the day, I have a message for you, and it's not just more money. It's not like we have more grants or anything like that. Our nation is completely broke. But what I do have a message I believe is the most impactful one for your future, and that's this. I want to be in your life at a third grade level. Mentors from college students all over the nation, other people giving back into community centers, spending time with you, teaching every young child how to read, write, and do math at higher levels. Only 15% of Black children in the urban areas are reading proficiently today. We have to improve that. That's 15%. So there's a long-term and a short-term solution. Long-term, we have to start early. Short-term, even at the high school level, we need to start investing in trade skills. I'm asking every single public company, private company, church, charity, individual, let's do this one thing. Let's own our cities. Let's take ownership of them. I'm from Dallas, Texas. You don't need to own Dallas, Texas. That's up to me and the business owners, leaders, church leaders there going, hey, how do we dive into our toughest areas of town where students are really lacking in trade skills and opportunities? Because less than half of them are coming out graduating from college. So what's happening to everybody else? We actually need to have you a 2-track system, and maybe 3, and I'll share that with you. So when you get out of high school, you're ready for life. And that's my vision. How can we prepare you for college? I call that a Tier 1A track. Get ready to go to college. College students are going to have a higher income opportunities long term. Second, A1 track, though, that may even be better today, and that's a technical trade skills where you can come out of high school as an apprentice earning a living wage job. These aren't just hard jobs at construction. There's certainly craftsmanship jobs, but there's apprenticeships in many levels, from technology to healthcare, cooking, restaurants, service industries, where you don't have to have a 4-year degree and come out with $100,000 in debt. You can actually come out and support your family. So I want to begin these 2-tier things. And the other one could be the military, where we're just preparing you for life. So if you want to serve in the military, which I want to bring back that patriotism in America, which is really low today, and give you a chance to start getting ready for life. And that's my vision. Let's do this for all Americans. Many people are struggling in our bigger cities because of the opportunities that are there and the lack of opportunities that are there for many people based on their color. It's time for us to seize that moment and take advantage of that now.
We have seen hundreds and hundreds of campaign events during this caucus cycle. You personally have had well more than 100 as you've traveled the state. For the most part, when you go to a Republican presidential candidate event, you go into that room, regardless of how many folks are in there, you see very few folks who do not have white faces. Why is that? Now, obviously in Iowa, most people are white. The growing demographics in this state are people of color. Why is it that your party is not attracting the same percentages, if you will, of non-white folks than compared to maybe when you go to a Democratic event? Where's the disconnect there?
Well, I think you're right, and I think I touched on part of it just earlier. We really haven't had a message. First of all, we have to recognize that our party started off as the party of Lincoln. The GOP party started really paying attention to the most defranchised in America, and that was the blacks that were in slavery. So we were the party that cared for them the most and that brought us out of that. We're also the party that got rid of the Jim Crow laws, but there was an era 50 or 60 years ago where things switched. And the American population began to switch based on race many times and how they were going to vote and which party they were going to be a part of. I think it's time that Republican message start to resonate with all Americans, brown, black, all colors, because we've got a true message. And I'm transcending this moment. I'm a pastor also, and I pastor a multicultural church. Many Christians in my church have come up to me and said, Ryan, I'm not a Republican for really these 2 reasons. Not because I believe in a far woke or left agenda, but really because the Republican Party hasn't had a clear message for the poor or for the immigrant, legal immigrants. They focus a lot on illegal immigration, but many of them have been here 20 and 30 years, are legal citizens here. They have family that want to come here legally, but they said this, Ryan, you don't have a message that meets my needs. And so as president, that's what I'm looking to change. I want to bring this back, that if the Republican Party doesn't have a message for the poor, if it doesn't have a message for the black community or the brown community, then really we're missing the message. We've become too, I would say this, predominantly white in many ways. Obviously here in Iowa, it's mostly white, but it's not far off the truth that our party actually needs to be more diverse and broad. But it starts with this, the right message with the heart of the community. So mine is diving right into the most difficult areas. You know, Republicans have been kicked out of urban America. When you look at the electoral map, it's amazing. It's red all over except for the big cities. Then it's blue, blue, blue. I'm from Texas. We're a red state, but we lost Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, Austin. I tell people Austin's a little weird. Love you, Austin. I'm from there. I went to school there, but it's always been Democrat. But Fort Worth went Democrat in this last election, which has been Republican for the last 65 years. Why? Well, college students as well, not just blacks, but college students are voting Democrat. 2/3 of them approximately voted Democrat and voted for Joe Biden in the last election. There's going to be 70 million young people voting. So we have to have a message that connects to young people, that connects to minorities. And my message is this. Let's get back to the heart of the hurting. Let's focus on, I think this. Who would Jesus focus on the most? He would be right there at the heart of the hurting. Who's struggling in America? Let's dive in there. Not just with more money. We don't have any more. But with volunteerism. I'm asking college students, hey, listen, join me in a movement. Would you mentor a young person 3 hours a week, 4 hours a week, and spend time to help them read, write, and do math? If you do, you can change their life forever. And that's really my message for America. Okay. How do we change the culture of a country? One life at a time.
All right, we have several questions. You just talked about education. This will continue that educational theme. Let's do this first one. This one's coming in from Steve from Decorah. In his mind, Republicans have done a lot to hurt public education. What is your stance on public education? And if elected, would you put an educator, somebody who knows about education, in the role of Secretary of Education? So what do you say to Steve?
Well, you know, Steve, thank you. You know, I'm sorry that you feel that way about the Republican message. You know, right now, it is a bit divided. I mean, at the end of the day, we need to have a message that we care about teachers. You know, teachers' unions have strongly controlled the education system across America in many ways for decades. It's not that they're doing a bad job. In fact, they're incredible saints, most of them. I mean, they're doing an amazing job. You have to feel called to that. I think this, more than anything, we need to pay teachers more. We need to have the highest quality teachers and people that feel attracted to do that as a calling for their life. We need to be able to attract them, keep them, and let them have the lifestyle that they need for that type of work that they do. At the same time, though, we have to be honest. We've got some problems. The United States of America has fallen behind. We used to lead in America 20, 30 years ago across the world in developed countries. Now we're not. Math, science, and key areas of STEM, we've fallen way behind, not even the top 20. We're really struggling in reading as well. Our proficient levels are down. So what do I believe in? I believe in school choice. I believe Iowa is leading the edge here. I think they're going to be a forerunner for years to come for other states to see. What does that mean when you have a poor school district now that's not working, maybe failing, and can you give that parent an opportunity, that student a chance to go to another school they could thrive better in? I think that's the right thing. I love the diversity of schools. Right now I believe in charter schools. I believe in private education. I believe in homeschooling. So there's a diversity of ways to get our kids prepared, and we need to make sure that we're helping all of us make sure that there's other ways to do this. But it's the job of the parent to be back involved again, and that's the way I would lead. I want to have a high standards for education. Those need to be higher. We need to attract great teachers, pay them well. Other than that, we need to give parental choice.
There's a movement among some of the Republican governors, maybe most of the Republican governors, to put more tax dollars for private school families. I know Ron DeSantis in Florida is saying this is something he'd like to do nationally. Is that something you would want to also get behind as president, do this on a federal level?
Well, you know, this is a state issue to me. So this is not, I like getting things off the federal bank account and into the states, but I can lead nationally. So at the same time, we need to have a national movement where we're educating better, we're raising the level of standards across America. You know, it's still the job of Iowa, it's still the job of Florida and Texas to make sure that the states are making these decisions. So I'm not looking to have a national education program. We don't need to expand the departments of education. We actually need to limit those and give that money back to the states in many ways. And so I'm not in favor of that, but I am for school choice. I am in favor of states making that decision to give those tax monies back to the families and let them decide, not only for private education, for charter schools, which many of are public as well. Can they move? Can that money be used? Maybe even homeschool parents. They're coming out of their own pocket and they're paying taxes. Shouldn't some of that money that they're already paying taxes on that's being used for public education be attributed to them at some level as well? I think so.
Some of the other Republican candidates have talked about getting rid of the Federal Department of Education altogether, pushing those efforts, maybe limiting some of those efforts, but pushing more onto the states to handle education. Would you get rid of the entire department or just reduce it?
I would reduce it right now. It would not be my goal immediately day one to get rid of it. I do like there being some standards and us having the ability to make sure that if you want some funds from the United States government, then there is a basic level of curriculum that you need to go by. I'm really for this. I mean, right now we're passing out diplomas many times, sheets of paper on diploma day or graduation day. And, you know, do they mean something? Are they really prepared for life? I want to make sure those standards are raised up. And then here's the federal money. I also want to make sure we're getting politics out of school. You know, parents are sending their kids to school to learn math, science, and reading, history, government. Get ready. They're not hiring teachers to teach them about, you know, political philosophy nor propaganda. So let's get that out of school. Let's get our kids prepared for life. And I like the Department of Education, bits of it for that, but it would be streamlined and cut consistently.
Okay, this goes right into what you're talking about. A question from Nathan from Urbana. It's a little long, so give me a second to get through it. In recent years, children are being subjected to scrutiny in public schools for gender preference in Iowa. We are talking about fewer than 1% of students. However, 100% of these students participate in active shooting drills, which most recently happened in Iowa. It's obviously very raw, and I know you're familiar with this. This was the mass shooting at Perry High School. Do you think that children should read what they want, dress how they want? If they're old enough to get shot and killed, shouldn't they have a say in this? Children should not be dodging bullets at breakfast while lawmakers sit and do nothing about school shootings, but pounce on 33 kids in the state of Iowa for being trans. There's a lot in that, but how do you answer that?
Well, first of all, you know, I want to have this thought. You know, any young person that's dealing with a thought that they're questioning their very identity. I want to know my heart is for you. So if you're a trans student today, I want you to know as president, as a human being who I am, I care about you. I've been in many meetings with college students, spoken with several from the LGBT community, trans students as well. You know, my main message is at that level, you know, I respect you. If you want to live your life, we're not going to agree on everything, but there's many things for us to focus on and work together. I want to let everyone know that we love them. There's nothing about our heart that we want to make sure you're not welcome part of our country and society. At the same time, I want to tell you to be patient. You know, every teenager is going through changes in their body and life and mind and emotions at high levels. Just be patient. I want to make sure that we have a safe place for you to go to school and to learn. However, and that's the key point here, it needs to be safe for everyone. And what does that mean now when we're talking about shootings? And this is a kind of a tiered question, and so it's a tiered answer a bit. But when we see tragedies happen at schools, I truly believe in protecting you because I care about you. I'm a pastor of a church. You know, we have a medium-sized congregation. We have a couple services on Sunday. You know what we have? We have armed guards there. And the reason we do is because we care about protecting them. Schools need to do something about this. I think a gun-free zone is really a safety-free zone. It's time for us to recognize that we need to do more today. There needs to be a plan that every school has in case there's an emergency like that, a school emergency from a shooting perspective. The police department needs to know about that plan. Security people need to know where the safe places are, where the keys are to every single room. There needs to be plans in place, and they need to be there quicker. That's why they need to be on site. But getting back now to the issue of care. you know what, I care about you. I want to make sure that everyone knows that. And by showing that, we need to make sure we're protecting your school.
Okay, so just to be clear then, so should every school then have some whether it's police, whether it's armed staff, what are you exactly saying with security?
I'm absolutely saying they should. Obviously, there's our trained professionals, off-duty policemen and women. We need to have a protection system for our schools that's much greater than it is today. Absolutely.
And the answer in your mind is, do you not support any gun restrictions of any sort?
Well, you know, the Second Amendment, we have to recognize all of our amendments are being threatened all the time, whether it's speech or the press or the Second Amendment, the Fifth Amendment for landowners here in Iowa and all over. The Second Amendment's one that should not be abridged. Now, I obviously for mental health issues that are severe, I think there should be cases where we look at those. But at the end of the day, it's not the gun that did this. Most of the people that are walking through these are going through a severe mental health crisis, of which I am for states investing so much more. You know, there's a surplus of hundreds of millions, I think, right here in Iowa. One of the things I believe they should do, if you have a surplus in your state, start investing in mental health care again. We have a tremendous difficulty right now. Many kids, young people dealing with addiction issues and mental health issues. Many of these shootings are just that. They're almost like on a suicide mission. They know they're going to die going into that day. That is a mental health issue we need to make sure we have more care for.
In your mind, what is behind this trend? If you go back the last couple of years, you can see how these school shootings in particular just keep rising, and this does seem to be a trend that is largely unique to the United States. What makes our country different than a lot of these other countries that fortunately for them, they are not having this level of violence? What's behind this?
Well, you know, I really do think this. We're not doing anything about it. I don't know exactly what other nations are doing in order to prevent it, but what's our prevention? We should certainly be having, you know, obviously areas where you're making sure somehow that they know that students aren't walking in there with weapons, but also we just need to have access to protection. I believe this. If a teenager or somebody's walking in a school and they see an armed police officer standing at the entrance and there's signs everywhere saying this school is protected, you know what? That may just stay home that day. And I just need to make sure that America knows this. We have to protect children if we care about our children. And I care about our children. We need to protect them.
Okay, this is a question from, got to get down on my list, excuse me, Freddie from Mount Vernon. And this is something you have talked previously during interviews and in campaign event appearances about, you know, broader reach here, broader outside reach beyond the Republican Party. And so Freddie had asked, would you support people becoming Republican for a day? And as we have our caucuses set up, you can go in there and register Democrat or Republican for that day if you really want to, and then go change the next day if you choose to. So Freddie is asking, what do you say to the folks and the concept of coming in, voting for Republican on caucus night, and then you may go back to being a Democrat or a non-party?
Well, listen, right now, vote for what you believe in. You know, you'll see our message, believe. I think this is what we've gotten away from. We're voting for candidates really that we don't believe in today. Sometimes many people and I were thinking, well, I think this person's likely going to win, so I'm just going to vote for them. You know, that's what the general election is for, Dave. I want everybody to get behind the candidate on the general election. But at the end of the day, the caucus, this is for voting for a candidate that you want to see win. This is one that you want to see step up. You know, in this race right now, we've been fighting. You know, we've been fighting for national media attention. We missed the the debates by a few pollsters in New Hampshire and one national poll. And so we've decided to stay in. And in this race, I mean, we've made it past a vice president, a couple billionaires, a couple governors, I think a senator, congressman or two. I mean, a mayor of a big city. We're in this because we believe in something different for America. So what's different? I think we have to see people again. Our party has been lost. We've been so divided. I'm a leader that wants to stop inflation, actually make your health insurance cheaper. I believe we can do that. I believe we can secure the border and do it from coast to coast, get funds for it, and actually have a comprehensive immigration plan. I believe we can have an urban America renewal movement. And so if you want to vote for me, yes, come vote for me. I think this, why not? change to the party. If I'm the candidate, stay with us on this journey. You don't have to go back. The reality is this: we have a message for America that counts. Now, if that ever changed and the leader was there that obviously didn't meet your goals, then certainly support the party with the president that beats your ideas. But right now, if that vision sits well with you, I'm asking everybody, vote for what you believe in. Don't waste your vote on some other candidate that's a little less of somebody else just because they're a little less volatile. I mean, vote for something that really matters. Let's get our country back. And that's why I'm asking people to caucus for us, vote for us. So absolutely sign up, come vote, and let's have faith for a great day on Monday.
The United States is a $34 trillion collective debt. We are seeing how it's rising far faster the last 10 years in particular than it had before. So as you might guess, we have a lot of financially based questions, economic questions. And I might summarize a bunch of these, maybe going back to an interview you and I did a while back where you talked about when you look at federal spending and how we're going to spend the past year almost $2 trillion more than the federal government took in. You said if you had to put a figure on it, we're probably spending at least 20% too much. How do you make that kind of substantial reduction in the federal spending?
Well, first of all, you have to communicate to America, all of America, Republicans, Democrats, Independents. You know, Dave, 49% of America is independents out there. So a lot of those people that may want to come over and caucus or vote Republican, that's part of the journey. But I got to communicate to everyone, why is rent up 30% more this year than just a year and a half ago? Why is food up 20 or 30% more? Why is you're spending $800 more a month in everyday expenses than you did just a year and a half ago? Well, the reason is because of our debt and because of our debt spending every single year. The Fed, what they have to do is print money by creating treasuries or buying new treasuries, and that is a result dumping money into the marketplace. And so when President Trump, we went $7.5 trillion in debt, doubled down on that with President Biden. We've doubled our debt in the last 9 years. And so this causes inflation. So I've got to communicate to everybody what's the reason we need to make a change, and then get to the heart of holding everybody accountable to what this means. It's an economics lesson. You know, Dave, I've been to college students all over. We've done a lot of town halls at universities. Most students aren't being taught macroeconomics or what the money supply does from a macro standpoint and how it causes inflation. We have to stop the spending, stop the wasteful spending. I have to go after the big things like healthcare. We spend $4.5 trillion a year in healthcare, only get about $2.5 trillion back in taxes, and the rest of that is debt we're creating in this one area alone. We can go after healthcare, get the monopolies out of the system, get the waste out of the system, get big pharma off the government dime, by the way, which is a whole nother conversation, but we can balance the budget. So we put together a 7-year plan to do so, and there's a way to do it. It's getting rid of wasteful spending. We can still keep defense. We can still support our veterans. There's certain people we will not cut on, but there's so much waste out there in healthcare and other areas. And when we do, we can balance the budget. And when we do that, we'll get our country back financially. I read the paper this morning. I was snowed in, so I got to read. I mean, there is a 12% rise in homelessness versus this time last year because people are on that rent bubble. There is people right now, 50% of young people are living with their parents today. That was not the goal when you went to college, to come out and go back to home to mom and dad. So we've got a huge problem. I have a plan to fix it.
We get messages from people that rip on the media for not, in their minds, talking enough about through COVID, the recovery, the economic recovery that we're probably still in from COVID, that we don't spend enough time looking at what they view as essentially just greed by some companies, kind of tapping that up. So yes, expenses and their costs had gone up for quite a bit. Now we've seen inflation start to back off. It's less than half than what it was, still higher than what the Fed is trying to get. Is that a piece of all of this in your mind? Is that a fair criticism?
Well, let's just take, for example, the comment you just made, the inflation's going down. So that was the narrative for the last 2 months. But just yesterday in the paper, the reports came out that inflation's going back up again. And I told everybody 2 months ago, I said, listen, when the Fed quit raising interest rates, that's a sign that they're trying to stop inflation. But that's not why they stopped, because they never had it under control. Their concern was these small regional banks were going to fail if they kept doing it, and they would. And so the problem is now inflation just went right back up this past month, and it's going to go up even more next year. And that's going to cause us to be at a very, very big concern financially. I'm right here in Omaha. So the Oracle of Omaha, Warren Buffett, he sold $30 billion worth of stocks this year alone because he sees trouble ahead. I see the same thing. Now, if we get back to pharmacy, drugs are big things. There are problems that we have in America where politicians, leaders have given them passes. I'll give you an example. Pharmaceutical companies, they're huge, multi-billion-dollar companies, they get a tax break on the advertising dollars they spend. Have you seen all these pharmaceutical commercials out there? I've never seen anything like it. It's amazing. But we give them a tax break. They deduct their advertising expense from the taxes they would pay as a normal business, if that makes sense. They're going to bring in money as taxes based on their income, and now they get to deduct their advertising expenses through that. That's one example that I would eliminate day one. There's unfairness in that at high levels. Not only that, Big Pharma is robbing our country. So it's a complex answer to this question, but there's inequity in the systems all over with pharmacy drugs, big pharmaceutical companies, and we have to get the waste out of the system. And when we do all this, we'll get our nation back on track.
All right, a question from Mike, and it gets into something you were talking about before about bringing people together. And Mike had asked, our country is divided more than I can remember in my lifetime, and I would like to know what you would do to bring our country together, and you addressed this a little bit, as well as promote liberty and justice for all, as I am not seeing that enough today, according to Mike.
Wow. Well, thank you, Mike. You know, in 2.5 years, Dave, we're going to celebrate our 250th birthday as a nation. That should be an amazing month. I mean, that shouldn't just be a day celebration. That should be at least a month-long or year-long celebration. Now, I'm old enough to remember the 200th anniversary that we had in 1976. But, you know, that should be an amazing day. But I'm glad that day's not today because we are so divided. So what would I do? Well, first of all, I would start focusing on issues that we all share. You know, there's Republican issues, there's Democratic issues, there's independent issues, but then there's American issues. So as president, what I'll start doing is saying, listen, let's get behind the things that's impacting all Americans. Well, what is that? Well, first of all, it's the rent that's gone up to so many Americans. It's the inflation that's crippling your bank accounts. The average person in middle income is getting hurt the worst. Let's dive in that together, guys. This is not a Republican issue. We have to stop inflationary spending so we can get this back under control. College students are the ones losing today. You know, they're coming out right now not being able to get jobs today or meaningful employment the way they want to simply because companies now are restricting. I just saw where Citigroup is laying off. Today I saw it, 20,000 employees in the next 2 years. They're unloading another 40,000 in a Hispanic bank that they have. And so they're unloading. Why? So employment's going to be hard unless we stop the deficit spending we're doing. That's the Bidenomics. Big debt, big growth, but it only works for a period of time. And so now we've got, you know, your normal issue. How do we unite our country? Well, we focus on that. We focus on now speaking to the heart of America, diving in and helping people. I want to start this volunteer movement, vocational trade movement. Let's focus on those that need help the most. I was with veterans last night. I mean, let's do some things. I met a man yesterday, Dave, that's been involved in over, basically, I'm going to get it right here, 1,000 funerals, giving honors for veterans in this last 10 years. I think he's doing 2 funerals today, even in this weather, right here in Council Bluffs. This is an organization that is helping people. What if we started giving, helping, serving in our community? When we do that, we begin to unify our nation again.
A lot of people concerned about Social Security. Stacy, among them, how would you keep Social Security solvent? What changes would you make?
Well, Stacy, great question. It's great to be of concern. You know, right now we have to understand it's a huge problem, but it's a quick history lesson. When it was started many years ago, it was started with a couple premises. One, we had about 30% more children per family than we do today. I think it was 2.6 kids per family we're having. Now we're having about 1.8 kids per family. Number two, people weren't living as long. They were living to be 65, 68 years old on average. Now it's another 10 or 12 years longer is the average lifespan. So it was built on a faulty system that's just not working. So I'm 56 years old. In 10 years, I will get about 78 cents of the dollar of what everybody's receiving today. So the sooner we repair it, the sooner it'll be fixed. It's set to be bankrupt. So what I have to do, I can't raise taxes right now. We're at an all-time high inflationary environment. We're very volatile financially. I would not do that anyway. We have to be honest with you. If you're young, I was told don't count on Social Security 30 years ago. I'm going to tell you that. If you're young, don't count on it. If you're over 60, it's going to be there for you. We're going to keep it for you. But if any presidential candidate says, I'm going to save your Social Security, ask him this question. Whose are you talking about? Mine, my kids, or my grandkids? Or, you can't do it for all three generations. There has to be some adjustments. The younger generations are going to have to work a few more years, but it's always going to be there. As long as we have people working, that system is going to be there, but it'll be less amount of money per your overall income than what, and so you should plan to have a bigger retirement 10, 20 years from now.
I'd follow that up with a similar question I asked former Ambassador Nikki Haley last night when Social Security came up. Is there a will, though, to accomplish this, a president, a Congress, to do these changes? When a candidate starts talking about any kind of changes with Social Security, it ends up being an attack ad in a political commercial, and then we see essentially nothing happens, regardless of ideas about whether you want to make people pay Social Security taxes on higher wages than they do now, if you want to reduce benefits, you want to make people work longer. Whatever it is, or you start talking about way out, it's only affects anybody under 30, whatever, what have you. Anytime this comes up, it becomes an attack ad. Do you really think that you as president can get Congress behind a movement to make some kind of change, and how would you do that?
Well, just like we are talking today, what President Trump did so well with Twitter, I'm going to have to sit there and do with Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, media, network, cable, everywhere, and look at the heart of America and tell them the truth. Tell them, be honest with them about where we are, and just hold other candidates and other politicians accountable to lies. At the end of the day, we have to be honest in where we are financially, and how to navigate through this. What I love about Americans? They appreciate it. I have been all over Iowa telling people that are already relying on Social Security. When I tell them the truth about it, they just look at me squarely in the eye and go, okay, do the right thing. I think we all can own up to this. This is what's the spirit of America that we need to get back. It's not about, I remember Kennedy, remember him, ask not what your country can do for you. This is where we have to get back to. We can fix these problems. So what, we have to work a couple more years. No problem. I'm going to work harder. I'm going to save a little bit more. We're going to do the right thing for America. Our job is to pass this country off stronger to the next generation than we received it. And we're not on track to do that. And as president, I will do that. Right now, we're in this moment where if we don't make some big changes, I think 50 years from now, Dave, that our generation is going to be known for the one that's prospered the most, but sacrificed the least. I mean, what are we going to do? Leave our kids with $50 trillion in debt and go to the lake or the ranch and say, hey, I'm sorry, we couldn't do it. I'm committing to you to get this right. We're going to make some changes, but it's going to be good for us. We're going to start a work movement again. We're going to grow our country again. We're going to be energy independent. We're going to start a manufacturing and job movement in America again. We're going to grow. We're going to make some pruneful cuts, I would call it pruning, and let's get our country back. And when we do, we're not going to have to worry about a few more years of working. We'll be able to save money in our economy. We're going to be just fine when it's time to retire.
You talked a lot about a lot of big changes here, so this may be an appropriate way to wrap that up. Cody from Coralville, when there is a crisis, what is the first thing, or what are the first things you would do? How would you respond to Cody?
Well, it depends on, I guess, which crisis we're talking about. There's several that we face as a nation, whether that be war, whether that be COVID. That's when I think when you find out what's inside of a person and how are they leading today. I think, first of all, when we look through some of the major crises that we've had, whether they've been financial, whether they've been, regarding health like we've had in recent years, it's going to take leaders to rise up, I think, first of all, and get all the facts, make sure we don't overreact the wrong way. If I take COVID, for example, It was uncertain. I think one thing we should do when we're going through a difficult time, I mean, let's look up. Let's don't forget God's watching us. I remember after 9/11 when a crisis hit. You remember that moment. That was probably the last time I think we had some sort of national unity. I do remember this. Shortly thereafter, we're all in church the next week or two. We were spending time reflecting and asking God for help. I think that's step number one. National crisis, huge moment. Let's don't forget to look up, ask God, and then let's use wisdom. You know, I don't think it was wisdom that we started just pushing vaccines that didn't have research, or we turned over the pulpit to the nation to Anthony Fauci. That was a mistake. We shouldn't have done that. We have to recognize that we need more information, but before we start making decisions for hundreds of millions of people, we need to make sure we're making great decisions in America, and that's the way I would lead. I would look up first in a national crisis. I would wait. I'd make sure I had all the information. I'd rise up higher and lead us through it.
I know we kept you a while here. I might wrap up with this one, though. As we're in the final weekend before Monday's caucuses, right? We've got snow falling all over the place. We're going to have a lot more of it. You're joining us from Omaha because this was kind of plan C as we tried to figure out how to coordinate everybody to make this work so that we could still do this conversation this afternoon. For a candidate, as you're trying to get in front of as many people as humanly possible in this weekend for these late deciders to try to push them, over the edge to get them to show up for you on Monday, how challenging is it as you sit here now on a Friday afternoon trying to gameplay what all you can accomplish before Monday night? So what's going through your head?
Well, first of all, make sure I'm connecting to all the voters all the more, and make sure I'm inviting you to engage with us. In fact, what we're doing, Dave, is we have 2 statewide Zoom calls for Iowa today. You can go to our website. I think one's at 4, and I think one at 6 or 7 p.m., where I'm going to be doing another town hall, engaging every Iowan from every county on what are you concerned about, and what is my answer for it. I'm also asking you to bundle up, bring some friends, and show up on caucus night, because it's the most important thing for our future. Everyone's looking to Iowa to lead. Everyone's looking to see this caucus night. I've been over 200 meetings across the county, across all 99 counties, and I've been to all of them, many 2 and 3 times. So I'm asking you, show up for us, but I'm asking you also lean in. Many of you people have been, undecided, and I'm like, listen, if you want something different in the United States of America, vote for something different. Don't vote for another politician that's just going to give you the same noise year after year that could be bought off by Democrats or billionaires, because that's a big part of the program. Don't go for the same old divisive rhetoric that we hear from everyone else. Vote for something you believe in. Would you like to see our economy restored? Would you like to see the heart of America back? Us transcending our party and uniting our country? That's what I'm about, because I believe we can do that. I can believe we can get our nation back, balance the budget, fix health care, secure the border, comprehensive immigration, urban America renewal, a party for all people. That's the way I will lead as president. And I'm asking you to come out and vote. I'm asking you to come out and caucus for us, speak for us. We're looking for 300 speakers minimum to cover most of the state here. We've got close to that number coming, but I still need a few out there. Please join us, lean in, and let's show up. And I'm asking for you to consider. I've sent out an ad asking everybody, would you do this? Pray. And if you feel, hey, I want something different, now's the time to do that. Well, if I finish in top 4 here in Iowa, top 5, we're moving on strong. We're going to get this message out nationally, because it's time to have a different voice and movement in America. If you're tired of the old leaders, the old way, vote for a businessman, a CEO, and a pastor that wants to do this the right way. Thank you very much.
All right, Ryan Binkley. Hey, just a personal thanks. I know you and your team worked through a lot of ways to try to still figure this all out today when snow is causing so many problems. So we appreciate you keeping your commitment and all the brainstorming as we made this thing work. So thank you for that, and best wishes on safe travel throughout the weekend.
Thank you, Dave. And it's been great to be with all of you. Please go to our website, Binkley2024.com. We've got speeches out there on YouTube as well. Lean in one more time. I'm asking for your help. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.